I'm sorry I can't be there with you guys today. My Ukrainian is not as good as I wished it would be, but I'm very proud to be collaborating with you on the first Ukrainian Permaculture Convergence. Congratulations to you all. And the question is, how do we make permaculture profitable for smallholder farmers in Ethiopia, or anywhere in the world for that matter? On scaling up, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about how I started small as a permaculturist. A little bit about my background. I started off in university studying economics, environmental science, and political science, along with Arabic. And in my studies, I saw that many of the problems that exist regarding sustainability are rooted in how we do business and our economic systems. Social entrepreneurship, changing the way that we do business with each other, is a very big part of creating a more sustainable society. I started small, first as a New York City public school teacher, working with immigrants and refugees that did not know how to read and write. And I would teach them to read, write, and grow food at the same time by designing and installing organic gardens in New York City. The picture on the left is a photo from maybe 2007 or 2008. My good friend Alan and I started a permaculture farm in northeast Pennsylvania. You can see that when we started our farm, there was no farmer's market, there was no organic market. So what we did was that we would take our produce door to door. So you can say that we were operating our first farm out of a pickup truck, selling to local communities. Left is a picture from Virginia, where I was teaching at Virginia Tech and started a teaching farm in Virginia and co-founded Permaculture for Peace. Again, working with immigrants from many different backgrounds. The picture on the left is of the teaching farm in Virginia, where we started Permaculture for Peace, for immigrants learning permaculture. And then the picture on the right is from the permaculture teaching course, where I had the privilege to meet Pablo and Tatiana and Vita and Galina and all the wonderful people who helped organize this event today. Things are very, very small. And what I'm realizing is that what I did before was very cute compared to what I'm doing now. I am working as Director of Agronomy for GreenPath Food in Ethiopia. So GreenPath Food is a social enterprise, and we are focused on helping smallholder farmers produce diverse, nutritious, and sustainably grown food using permaculture. So the farmers that I'm working with right now on a daily basis have very small farms, maybe 1 hectare or half a hectare or less. Is that we're training all of these farmers to put their resources together and export to other. So we are the first company in Ethiopian history to ever get smallholder farmers organic certification for fruits and vegetables. We built Butajitas for a supply chain. This is how we connect farmers to refrigeration and then to export markets. We were told by our third-party certifiers that, to their knowledge, we're the first company that's using permaculture to ever get European Union organic certification. To our knowledge, we're the first company that's ever trying to take permaculture design and scale it up on a commercial scale. So you can see in the photographs, our focus crop is avocado. But we're actually working with polyculture systems that have 20 different, and it's interesting because we do talk about scale and permaculture. Writers of Mollison write about making the smallest change to hear about small is beautiful. We talk about doing things in the scale of permanence, that things should never be bigger than you can manage. Growing by chunking. So right now we're working with about 70 different farmers. We're working with over 100 hectares spread across 70 different farmers. But we're working to make the smallest change to the greatest effect. And we're going to show you how we're scaling up permaculture in a modular way. So, in light of the fact that most permaculturists think that permaculture should be small in scale, I'm going to pose the question about why we should scale up permaculture.
Translation?
So the reality is that 80% of the people who produce food on the planet are hungry and malnourished. And smallholder farmers in the developing world have a competitive advantage by by introducing permaculture technologies and polycultures, we can increase yields and nutrition for smallholder farmers without massive capital inputs.
Translation?
Capital inputs. Our farmers in Ethiopia and smallholder farmers all over the world. So, free trade policies established in the 1990s encourage monocropping system of commodities for international markets. So the government has training programs where they encourage farmers to grow lots and lots of corn or lots and lots of wheat or basically commodities to be sold cheaply. And growing these hybrid corn or wheat requires very high levels of costly inputs such as fertilizers and pesticides that wind up driving farmers into debt. And of course, they're very vulnerable to international market fluctuations. If corn goes down and the farmer is only growing corn, that farmer is in deep trouble. And again, a lot of farmers grow monocrops of these commodities just because it's what their neighbors do, or it's what they have, at least in recent memory, that's what they've always done. And farmers are very risk averse, understand. And so the question is, how can we incentivize farmers to start using permaculture and growing organically? Okay, so when we talk about the international market paradigm, planting monocrops of commodities, permaculture offers an alternative. So of course, we're focused on care for the earth, care for people, and return of surplus to all. And we have our farmers planting in both perennial polycultures and rotations of annual polycultures. Okay, and then we encourage farmers not just to plant crops, but to plant agroecosystems. Agroecosystems. Actually, even if you look at this photograph, this is Gaytu and his wife and son. You can see that he's growing avocado trees. Even just asking a farmer to plant an avocado is very different from what farmers normally are able to do. Perennial crops like pomegranate or like avocado take many years. It's a long-term investment. Farmers are concerned with simply feeding their families right here, right now. So Vandana Shiva is one of my favorite writers in sustainable agriculture. She's a physicist from India, and she's shifting the paradigm. So if you look only at yield per hectare, conventional industrial agriculture produces higher yields. You change the paradigm, and instead you measure productivity based on your return from the inputs, how many outputs you receive, or if you look at the amount of nutrition, or traditional polycultures win. Right, so we've got 20 in organic mixed cropping systems. You have 26% more protein per acre, 3,000% more carotene, 88% more thiamine, 194% more minerals in general. And of course, she finds that an industrial system of agriculture requires 300 units of fossil fuel inputs to produce 100 units of calorie output. While organic polyculture systems can produce 100 units of output from 5 units of input. Permaculture across smallholder farmers to meet international market demand. Great. Okay. So what we're doing is that sometimes permaculture systems can be very complex, but we are creating modular packages of perennial and annual polycultures. Great. We're creating supply chains that link smallholder farmers to international markets that value organic produce. We sign contracts with farmers that ensure farm gate prices that offer higher premiums than local market price in order to incentivize. And of course, we've obtained organic certification so we can ensure farmers premium, steady state farm gate prices throughout the year. Right? And this protects farmers from market fluctuations. The first picture is one of our first packages, which is called the Guild to Go. This Guild to Go system, what this is that every single avocado tree has a micro swale dug 150 centimeters downhill from each tree. And you have to understand, in Butajira, we have very long periods of, and then other periods that are very intense rain. And so around every single tree, we put mulch, we have a micro swale downhill from every tree, and then we have a berm around every single tree. And in that berm, we plant perennial herbs and fruits that are beneficial to the avocado tree and have an export market. And what's great about this is that the farmers, if a farmer has only 10 trees, they buy 10 Guild-to-Goes. If they have 200 trees, they can buy 200 Guild-to-Goes. And so basically, it's a perennial polyculture that we have planned for them and we help them install. And it conserves water, builds the soil, attracts pollinators, and keeps away pests. So again, we have crops like lavender that attract pollinators, and that winds up increasing fruit set and fruit yield. Cherry, which is a terrific soil builder and also has demand in the international market. We have chives and garlic chives, which keep away larger pests and also have a high international market value. And then we have a lot of other crops that we've experimented with. So that's the first module that we have, is the Guild to Go. We're trying to get farmers to transition from planting in monocultures of annuals to be growing more perennial crops. So we have a program called Perennial Pathways and Annual Alleyways. The perennial pathways are 50 centimeter wide double dug beds that have intercrops of perennial and biennial herbs. Okay. And these perennials, they include rosemary and chives, lemongrass, basil, and parsley. And these herbs are rich in phytochemicals that trap and deter pests, such as aphids, whiteflies, powdery mildew, and others. And what's great about this is that when we work with the farmer to make these perennial pathways, we explain that these are, so they will not need to be plowed, they will not need to be replanted, and they will produce income continuously year after year. Year after year. In between the perennial pathways, we have what we call annual alleyways. They alternate. And so these are also 50 centimeter wide double dug beds. Okay, we have 6 different rotations. The 2 example rotations are chilies and legumes. And so, for example, the chilies have increased yields because we're growing edamame, which is a kind of immature soybean, next to them. Because it's planted in between perennial pathways that have oregano or parsley or basil in them. Those protect the chilies from attack from pests and are reported to improve the flavor of the chili also.
Okay, translation.
And basically you would have that kind of Solanacea intercrop running for about 6 months, and then you rotate to the next intercrop, in this case Brussels sprouts and beets. Okay. This uses a technique called succession planting. You plant the beets and the Brussels sprouts at the same time. When the Brussels sprouts are still small, when the beets are mature, you harvest them, and the Brussels sprouts are mature. So again, these are techniques that farmers were not using before. All of the crops that we're growing have demand in the international organic market. So like you can see in this photograph here, we have G2 and we have Mulugeta and his wife Gennet, and they are in an annual alleyway perennial pathway polyculture. But what's great is that they have a system where they were just growing avocados and corn before.
Okay.
Now we have them planting in systems. And again, they're getting higher yields in the short term, but also preparing the land for larger returns in the long term with the avocado. So they're not wasting that space. Okay, so again, what's great about having these polycultures as modular is that we have these great Excel spreadsheets. We predict the yields for everything. And again, this is important in terms of our relationships with buyers. And again, getting the European Union organic certification is very important. So even though permaculture is beyond organic, most of the world doesn't know that. And so again, for markets in Asia or in the Middle East, they're not going to pay a premium price unless they see that organic certification symbol. And in the end, our farmers need to be rewarded and earning money for growing their food the ethical, sustainable way. In Ethiopia, there is no such thing as organic certification. We're selling organic tomatoes next to somebody who's selling conventionally grown tomatoes. They're going to get the same price. So again, by linking farmers to markets that actually value growing organically, we're making a difference. Organic certification costs, and it's often prohibitive for farmers. It's too expensive for smallholder farmers in Ethiopia to get an organic certification. It costs like $5,000. Also, most certifying agencies don't deal with permaculture. They're used to certifying monocrops of, chemical-free produce. And for organic certification, farmers need to keep detailed records of all inputs and outputs on their farm. And when 40% of the farmers in Buttigieg are pre-literate, how do you make it possible for the most disadvantaged farmers to have access to organic certification? What we did is that we had a group certification process where GreenPath carried the cost of the organic certification for a cohort of about 25 farmers. And we use an internal monitoring system that we use on cell phone technology to monitor what's happening on farms to make sure that crops are grown organically and that they're healthy.
Okay, translation?
And that they're healthy.
Yes, we have it.
Okay. And what we do is that we have a digital version that we send using mobile technology and a paper version in potted. And so the farmer keeps these records that our farmer training officers fill out for them every 15 days in a binder at their farm. It's saved online that we can use to monitor plant health and predict yields.
Okay.
So what's great is that even if a farmer cannot read, if an inspector comes to their farm, they have paper-based records that document that everything that they're doing is organic.
Okay.
So our next steps is to scale up to 100 farmers by the end of the year. Right now we have 70. By the end of the year, right now we have 70. We plan to expand to a second site to serve an additional 100 farmers. And we want to get fair trade certification. You can just skip the next slide. It's just words of wisdom, which is that even if things seem too big for you, if the universe asks you to do something. So again, thank you so much for letting me present with you today. I'm of course happy to answer your although I know we don't have a lot of time. You can always email me at Christina@greenpathfood.com.
Okay, Christina, thank you very much. So it was great to hear you, and thank you for sharing your experience. Yes.